Hey friends, we're going to learn a little bit about classroom management. This is an article that you'll find on the same page as this video that you clicked on. And I just wanted to highlight a few things for you. First is classroom management. It says here that effective teachers use rules, procedures, and routines to ensure that students are actively involved in learning. So managing the classroom is more than just having rules, but having procedures in place and routines that students understand pretty well. And then classroom organization has to do with how you organize the physical environment. You'll see it right there. And that's really important as well, because you want to have students able to get materials they need, have the furniture placed well for them to get around the room, and also in order that they might not be distracted. When we look here, it talks about your expectations for student behavior. Effective teachers know that student behavior is not all about rules and not only about rules and consequences, but they also know that it's a developmental issue in the classroom. I like what Dr. Gibbs says, that all student behavior is communicating something to you. So when students are misbehaving in your classroom, they're trying to communicate. And if you would look at what the deeper issues are and what students are trying to communicate, you probably will be more effective. So we're going to look at classroom management. We're going to look at rules first. And you want to make the rules pretty clear to students. You don't want to have more than 5 to 7 rules. Probably closer to 5, the better. They need to be understandable to students. They need to be able to be doable for students, and they need to be stated in a positive way as much as possible. So let's say you had a rule that said no talking. Well, it's understandable, that's for sure. It's not stated positively, but it's definitely not doable, because how many of us could sit in a situation for hours during the day and not talk? I remember when I was a principal, I used to go into the lunchroom with the teachers in the teachers' lounge, and I would say, they would say the kids in the cafeteria shouldn't talk during lunch. And I would say, well, can you not talk during lunch? And of course I was nonsense, because teachers had to talk during their lunch hour with each other, just like students do. So you need to make it something that is doable. So even the rule of raising your hands before you speak in the classroom is not always going to be consistent, because sometimes you're going to want them just to talk and to discuss maybe something they're reading or that sort of thing. And if you say no talking without raising your hand, then that has to happen every single time. The other thing, too, is that effective teachers react in several ways, with positive reinforcement to the desired behavior and consequences that punish a negative behavior or extinguish a negative behavior. I want to talk a little bit about that. When you think about your classroom management plan, I always had the policy that if students committed an infraction, some kind of behavior, and if it was public, if everybody in the class knew about it, was disruptive to everyone, then I dealt with it in a public way. Not yelling or ever raising my voice, but I would speak to it in front of everyone. So, for example, if I had a student that would call out across the room, I don't want to do this assignment that we're doing, I would deal with that in front of everybody, because it needed to be dealt with in front of everybody. But if 2 students were having a disagreement between each other in their seats in the corner of the room, something like that, then I would just go over quietly to those 2 people and talk to them about what was going on, instead of bringing it to the attention of everybody. So the rules are going to be consistently enforced. They're going to be doable. They're not going to change in any situation. They're always going to remain the same. As far as routines, you need to have classroom routines so that students know what's going to happen. For example, Effective classroom routines often include: how do you take attendance? How do you enter and leave the classroom? How do you take care of your materials? What do you do with trash when you've got it on your desk? How do you label your work? How do you turn in assignments? How do you transition from one activity to the next? One of my favorite things is a little side note about turning in assignments. I had a teacher where I was principal who was frustrated because students wouldn't put their name on the assignments. So instead of making a big deal of it, he just put out 2 baskets, and one basket said assignments with names. The other basket said assignment without names. And pretty soon everybody had their assignments with their names on them. So you're going to think through routines like that in your classroom. As far as the classroom organization, which remember is the physical aspect of the classroom, the physical elements, I want you to think about 3 terms: visibility, accessibility, and distractibility. Visibility means that you want to be able to have every student see you wherever you are in the classroom, and you want to be able to see every student. You're probably not going to be a teacher that stands at the front of the room. I'm hoping you won't be a teacher that stands at the front of the room. But I wanted always to be in a situation where if I needed to alert the entire group to something, they were able not to have their backs to me. I laugh at Point Loma sometimes in classes because the rooms are arranged sometimes with students' backs to the teacher, and that's just not a good way to organize the classroom, because students need to see you so that they know you can see them. So that's visibility. Accessibility, any materials that you have, you want them to get dictionaries out or something like that, they need to be accessible and easily reached by the students. So you wouldn't want to put them in a bookcase behind the teacher's desk where they had to crawl over the desk or around the desk or something to get to them. You want it easily accessible. And then distractibility. I was first teaching in a school that had, the classrooms had all windows down one side of the classrooms. And I didn't know what I was doing, and so I had the seats set up where basically half the class was looking straight out the window. And I just didn't realize that that would be a distraction. But anytime anybody walked by, or a bird flew by, or somebody was throwing something outside, it wasn't good. So I had to change that. So you don't want them to be distracted. If you have a computer section in the classroom with 3 or 4 computers, you don't want students to be distracted by those computers. So you wouldn't have them facing those stations. So I hope that helps. This article is really good, and I think if you go through it by yourself, the rest of it, you'll get some ideas. Here's a chart that talks about whether the rules that you're going to write are clearly stated, are they reasonable, are they enforceable, are they general, and are they stated positively. The first rule here I want you to look at, it says respect for each other, and some of those kind of rules are really tough for students because they don't have the same understanding of what respect is that you might as the teacher. So if you chose to use that rule, you would need to teach them what you mean by respect so that they would understand exactly what that looks like. One of the biggest issues I think that we have is that teachers don't make visible their invisible expectations. That's a great statement that you want to remember. Make visible your invisible expectations. So that would mean that you would say to students, I want you to sit and face me and fold your hands while I speak, something like that. I mean, you wouldn't say that to high school students, but, it might be sit, face me, don't interact with your neighbors while I'm talking, that kind of thing, so that students are well aware of what you're expecting. So you would need to do that with the rule, respect each other. If you look at the other rules here, like talk in an indoor voice, that's pretty understandable for students. But now, here he says it's not clearly stated. So again, I guess you would have to define what that is for students if they were confused. Stay in your seat at all times. Is that reasonable? No. So you might want to look at this list of rules and see for yourself. So you're going to look at this article, and then you're also going to look at some cases with teachers, and then you're going to end up teaching each other, your partners and you, about more specifically about rules, procedures, and classroom environment, classroom arrangement. So thanks for listening to the video. I hope you're enjoying this module on classroom management, and I will talk to you soon.